So my name's Jakub, and we're running the OSX podcast. I'm joined by Terry. Introduce
Hi,
yourself, Terry.
I'm Terry McGinnis. Hi. I'm the co-founder of OnlineShop.com. And, yeah, very good friends with Jakub here, the beautiful Jakub, the Polish Hussar.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm a founder of Ecom Pilot, and we ended up joining forces as soon as we realized we both on a mission to e-commerce. We help each other, whether it's online shop, Ecom Pilot. We help each other in life, philosophy. Hell, there's a lot of different avenues we cross, and we ended up realizing that, you know what, it's worth kind of not jotting down our thoughts and in general sharing it with the public, because there's certain topics we get into and we have, genuine insight, whether it's from Terry's years of experience or like the interesting backgrounds we've come from. I think that there's a lot of value that someone can get, whether that's, entertainment or genuine, mind-blowing paradigms, right? There's certain things that we look at differently. So this podcast will be an amalgamation of kind of our advice as founders, things we've learned over the past years, random thoughts that'll come up, as well as some humorous stuff, whether it's from the connections we've had, stories we've had to tell, and possibly the future.
There you go. What a perfect intro, but you made me sound like an old man. I'm only 27. Although I do look like a hobo and an old man, but I like this look. You know what? This look is not out of choice. It's because every girl I ever date, they steal my entire wardrobe. So every time, like I have designer clothing like Louis Vuitton, Gucci, right? You start dating someone and suddenly one after the other, whether it's sunglasses, small leather goods, whatever you name it, they just start disappearing. So yeah. So now I'm just rocking Gap and looking like a hobo because why not? And this is why, you know what? This is why there's monograms. So now I put like TM everywhere.
Just to make sure it shows, yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Can't lie then.
Even on my phone case. Everywhere. Yeah, everywhere. Just in case they steal it. Unless they have the same initials, then good luck. Good luck rocking that.
I mean, it looks like it's trademark,
Exactly, trademark. Why not?
Literally again, TM.
Yeah, exactly. Trademark. It's not even a registered trademark. It's just a trademark. Yeah, not protected by a copyright, sadly. But yeah. So yeah. What? Sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's an interesting topic actually. Talking about trademarks, right? One thing a lot of new founders, especially first-time founders, get into is, the world of trademark, copyright, intellectual property. How important would you say is trademarking your name?
Registering a trademark, it really depends. Like, there's so many different classes of trademark. Well, copyright. Technically anything you do in business, like say for example, Terry's boots, right? Technically, that's a trademark. You don't have to register. You could put like a little TM sign there and saying, "Hey, I'm using this as my trademark. I'm trading by this name. Therefore, if someone's trying to copy, I could sue you and get some compensation." A registered trademark is completely different. That means like no one can use it. It's registered to me. I own it. Then if it ever comes to court, it's a lot easier to argue that they infringed on it, you own it, blah blah blah. It just makes the whole legal process a lot more smooth, I guess. But that also comes with caveats, because when you have a trademark registration, for example, like Disney or Ferrari, Disney owns Mickey Mouse, right? So the modern day Mickey, there's been cases where Disney is just sending cease and desist letters to ice cream vans. So in the UK they have like Mickey Mouse on an ice cream man.
Yeah.
It's not licensed. It's not licensed by Disney, but Disney has to issue these cease and desist letters saying you can't use it because you are bound by law. You have to protect it. A lot of founders that register these trademarks, they don't realize that. If you stop protecting it, then you get in muddy waters where it's like, well, if you ever tried to take someone to court and be like, but you're allowing all these other people to use your trademark, well, why are you attacking this person? So so when you hear these cases of Ferrari suing all these innocent people and Disney and stuff like that, it's because you have to. you have to issue these cease and desist letters, and it can become very, very expensive because you have to have a legal team to draft these letters, or look at the cases and stuff like that. It becomes a very, 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 very expensive and time consuming job. So my advice, my personal advice, if you're just a startup founder, just you don't have to register a trademark, um, unless it's a very unique name that you want to protect. But then again, there's so many classes that you have to protect it under. There's God knows how many classes, I don't even know off the top of my head, but there's like class 42, class 40, and then United States is different as well. So you have to then apply for international, registrations and stuff like that. It just becomes a huge hassle. So I would always say, hey, leave it off of until you have enough money to ensure you enforce that trademark, where it's a very unique, special thing, product, whatever. So yeah, these are just my
Yeah,
thoughts.
I mean, talking about trademarks running out, I'm sure everyone's heard about the most popular case recently of Winnie the Pooh, right? Have you heard about this? Winnie the Pooh getting turned into a horror film?
Oh, really? No, I have not. I know Steamboat Willie is now a public domain, I believe, and Batman, original Batman, is also is about to enter the public domain. But I do know that Warner Brothers and, well, DC and Disney are lobbying the government to then extend the copyright. I believe right now it's like 60. I think it's like 60 years after the death of the copyright holder. I'm not really sure. I can't remember off the
Hmm.
top of my head, but you're trying to extend that to 100, or it's like 60 years plus something. That I think the total maybe it's 108 years, but they're trying to extend it more and more. So you don't want like people starting creating original Batman or Steamboat Willie creations and then monetizing on them.
Yeah, well, that's the interesting thing. It's no one would have thought that Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey would be a title of a 2023 thriller to come out in February.
Mm. But the thing is,
But
Winnie the Pooh is not really the Disney's original creation either, right? It's by forgot the author now. Damn, but it's not by Disney, right?
mhm.
So it's by a completely different creator. Uh,
I think A. Milne, right? Alexander
yeah,
Milne or
yeah,
Alan Milner.
things. Yeah, yeah. I
It
think
rings a
there's
bell.
another, like Snow White. Like a lot of Disney stuff are just Grim Tales. Like they just took Grim Tales and they just repurposed it. So Grim Tales are in the public domain. So technically, you could be using Snow White, just not
Mm.
the character that Disney has created. So that's the kind of the difference between. So I guess this Winnie the Pooh would be not Disney's um, Winnie the Pooh. It would be the public domain Winnie the Pooh that stems from the original artwork or literature or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, the thing trademarks I think are important, but
Hmm.
in regards to extending them and things like that, while it would help, I guess not tarnish an image or a certain brand or perhaps certain
Hmm.
storytelling features like we talk about, let's say trademark and lengthening the trademark for, let's say, something like Batman. At the same time, it happens time and time again where people just buy them outright, right? Star
Hmm.
Wars, who was Star Wars bought by? Was that Disney? And then they decided to kind of spin off and do their own story
Hmm.
compared to what was meant to. It was meant to finish, I
Hmm.
think, episode 4, and yet they were like, we
Hmm.
can make more money from this. We can continue this. We can maybe try
Hmm.
and tell a different story, but still, it feels
Hmm.
like they
Hmm.
just, at the end of the day, trademarks do last, but trademarks can be bought.
Yeah, no, yeah, intellectual property. Yeah, so I think Lucasfilm. Yeah, Lucasfilm sold to Disney. I'm pretty sure LucasArts is still independent. I'm not sure, but that's the game development studio.
Mhm.
Because I work with Disney, I work with movie studios quite a lot. It's I think Disney has bit off a lot with um the kind of the Star Wars franchise, and especially Marvel, right? I think there's such a big fatigue right now for superhero movies. Like, oh, there's now movies coming out in phases. It's like even comic book fans, hardcore comic book fans, are like, it's a bit too much, right? It's becoming less and less special. You need like big. cataclysmic events.
Mm.
It's like when Sony was purchasing the rights to Spider-Man, right? It's they had the I think they had the ability to purchase all of Marvel's intellectual property to be adapted into movies, and the
Yeah.
Sony executive said people only care about Spider-Man. Nobody gives a shit about any of the other Marvel superheroes, which is actually correct. Nobody actually cared about any of the Marvel superheroes. Like, if you read the comics, like, it's so convoluted. Like, I'm a DC guy, I have to be, but those, like, Spider-Man was the most like relatable one, right? He was like teenager
Hmm.
and stuff like that. And now with and then Fox acquired X-Men and like I think Blade and those kind of like maybe lesser known hero films. I can't remember exactly. And now Disney has bought Fox. They own Marvel, so they're like, and Sony obviously they have licensing agreements for Spider-Man and things like that. They're bringing everything in together, which is quite nice and is going to be exciting to see. But do we really need to have 5 Ant-Man movies? Are people really that interested in Ant-Man? I don't really think so.
How many is
So
he on now?
I
I'm sure
think
it's at
there's
least two.
3. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think 2 or 3. I know there's another one coming out soon too. It's like there hasn't been I like a good Hulk movie, I would say,
Mm.
he's kind of forgotten. Why not focus on that character? Because he's been like so pacified now, with he's like Nerd Hulk. I think a lot of what is it? Eric Eric Banner or something like that. I forgot the actor's name. The original Hulk in
Mm.
2003. That was a good start, and then obviously Ed Norton took over in 2008. That was a great Hulk movie, and then suddenly we got Hulk just stopped. He just became part of Avengers, and that Hulk is
Oh
now
yeah.
gone. So it's kind of weird. It's kind of I don't know what I'm talking about. Sorry, I got off track.
You're passionate about Hulk. That's fine. It's
I'm
fine.
passionate about good art being adapted to cinema. He's a great character. He deserves more recognition.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. There's a little bit different topic. Recently, I was speaking to a friend. We were kind of just having these almost high level thoughts, right? Where we were giving ourselves scenarios. What would you do if you're in this situation, etc., etc. And
Uh-huh.
one of the things we came up with was, you often hear people say, "Would you rather, do this or go back in time?" and things. And everyone usually, whenever it comes to time travel and going back in time to your younger days, there's always the kind of cheat answer of like, would you rather to get 10 million now or go back in time, right? And then a lot of people we'll go back in time and we'll grab some, what do you call? We'll buy some Bitcoin, right? It tends to go
Uh-huh.
that way. It tends to people go, right, I'll remember this lottery
Mm-hmm.
ticket. I'll go back in time,
Mm-hmm.
play this game, I'll play this hand, and I'll
Mm-hmm.
make a lot more than 10 million.
Yep.
Now, we tried to add a spin on this. We realized, okay, what those are specific scenarios, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we would say like that is knowledge, right? Knowledge being that
Mm-hmm.
it's something that applies to that time currently, or to that situation, but it's not wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you couldn't take any knowledge with you, right? You can't, if you had to go back in time
Mm-hmm.
or speak
Mm-hmm.
to your younger self and you could give them one bit of advice,
Okay.
and it can't be knowledge, it can't be buy Bitcoin or, place this lottery ticket on this day on that
Mm-hmm.
date, or make a bet that, I don't know, the Queen will die in 2022. You can't do shit like this.
Mm-hmm.
What bit of wisdom would you give it? If it's just
Don't get
one
married.
sentence.
Don't get married.
Don't get. Okay, that especially applies for you.
Yeah, no. But that will create a paradox, right? Because if you go back in time, that means, it's kind of like a loop, right? That means it, I'm too tired to explore the paradox, but yeah, besides that, not get married, a younger self, huh? That's like a very, if it's like one piece of advice, you just like go through this wormhole back in time, or a mirror dimension, but at a earlier stage of
Hmm.
existence. Huh? I don't know. That's a hard one.
Yeah, let's say yeah, let's say the paradox like grandfather paradox and all these things wouldn't apply. Let's say it wouldn't be a
Yeah.
case of by the fact that you're going back in time, you're breaking, you're not
Yeah.
meant to meet yourself
Rules
because
of
that then changes the
thermodynamics.
course
Yeah.
of events. Yeah, and
Yeah.
then you no longer actually go back in time.
Mhm.
So let's say that doesn't apply, and you can, or let's say, okay, you don't have to meet him, but you can write
Mhm.
something on the paper that he's definitely going to read, and
Okay.
it's like a one sentence, right? Technically,
Okay.
sure, it might change, the course of events,
Okay.
but let's
Yeah.
say they won't change it so drastically that you'll still go back in time. But yeah,
Can
what's
I
like
draw a
bit of
picture?
advice?
Can I draw a picture instead of writing?
Yeah, sure.
I would draw a dick butt. I would just draw a dick butt. There you go. That's
To
it.
your
That's
past
me.
self.
Yep. Just dick butt. Figure it out. You're on your own, Terry. That's that, and I think that would give a sense of adventure. Like, what did my future self mean by this?
Yeah,
Rather
like,
than
I
just,
guess. Yeah, I wonder if you'd know if that was you. You'd be like, "There's no fucking way." Like this
oh, if
has
it's
to
just a
just be
random
some
piece
other
of
kid.
paper, I'm just like, oh, someone drew a dick butt. Fuck this. Like, yeah.
Little does he
Yeah.
know, it's 22
Dude.
years Terry.
Yeah, 2022 Terry. You know what? The thing is, it's like I wouldn't want to go back in time, especially me, my younger self, because it's like, as crazy as my life is, it's pretty exciting and it made me who I am, and I don't want to change that. So I wouldn't take that route. I wouldn't choose to go back in time. I think um, there's a lot of things I regret, and obviously a lot of things that I wanted to do and change differently. But at the end of the day, if I do that, it's like it wouldn't make me me. And if I go back, will I even exist? Mm.
Yeah, it'd be you're walking a careful line of perhaps giving the advice too early, and that just spins them out. You know what I mean? In a way, I'm
Yeah.
also a strong believer in things had to happen in the way they did, not necessarily fate,
Hmm.
but in the fact that our experiences shape us and our character. Right? At the end of the day,
Yeah.
the fact that we're speaking on this podcast tends to be because of certain events that transpired that then led to this
Hmm.
moment, kind of the butterfly effect, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Let me think of an advice I would give though. If there was
Don't.
like one bit non-intrusive, if there was one non-intrusive like bit of advice I could give myself in the
Hmm.
past, that would still continue to the point where I'm at is
Don't
um,
attend Terry's speech in Manchester.
yeah,
That's where
stay
it
away
all
from
went.
Terry
Yes.
McGinnis.
I think a lot of people would give that advice. Yeah, stay away from Terry. Yeah.
Yeah, Exhibit
But they
A,
always
my
come
honor.
back.
We spoke about this on the podcast. I tried
Exactly.
to send out the signals, help.
Yeah, help. Yeah, exactly. But the funny thing is, they always come back. They always come back. It's like, but yeah, what is the advice you would give yourself?
I think it because I could go complicated, right? I could go something to do with like a philosophy like Taoism and say Wu Wei. Wu Wei means like go with the
Hmm.
flow, right? The
Yeah.
whole idea of you want to let things happen naturally.
Hmm.
One common thing of explaining Wu Wei is giving the
Hmm.
example of planting a seed in the ground, right?
Hmm.
Most people, when they're impatient, they'll try and unbury it, check if the plant's growing, but that, of course, is going to not only harm the plant, but it's going to stop it from growing.
Yeah.
And Wu Wei kind of encompasses that whole fact of like stress less. Once you do something, like follow through with it, and then just let things happen.
Yeah. Whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, maybe write like a word like Marcus Aurelius or something. So I would just Google, and then it's like we're talking 10 years ago that Google existed, YouTube existed. I'm sure there was someone talking about stoicism somewhere. I think a
Of
lot
course.
of that was a good advice.
Mm.
Perhaps reading that earlier might have been good. I feel like I would have still stayed on the same path. I don't know if it's the right path, but I still would have stayed on the same path.
Hmm.
Probably just changed how I acted when I was younger, though, a little bit.
Hey, but you're young. You're supposed to make mistakes. Yeah, do
Hmm.
stupid shit. Learn from it. That's
Oh
what
yeah,
makes
we're gonna
wise
do a lot more
men and
stupid
women.
shit.
Yeah, exactly. That's what makes wise people wise. It's
Hmm.
fucking up a lot, taking a lot of risks, calculated good risks, not like, oh, I'm gonna do this kilo of cocaine here on the table. Let's see what happens. No, that's a bad risk. I'm gonna start a business and see how that goes, right? That's a good risk. And even if you fail, you learn a lot of skills, you grow your network, and you're able to believe in yourself. That's, I think,
Hmm.
the hardest part for a lot of people start a business is the belief that they can do it. A lot of people give up before they even try, and it's kind of sad. Mhm.
Yeah. In talking about risk, actually, what is what would you say is the most common misconception about failure? Because I feel like that's something that, as anyone who makes progress within this world, within society, whether you're an athlete, doctor, musician, agency, business owner, anything in between, you end up figuring out it's a part of the journey. So, what are
Of
kind of
course.
your insights into failure, or like if you're gonna summarize kind of why are people looking at failure wrong, what would it be?
I think failure has a very negative connotation, and I think
Hmm.
that's years and years and years of what do you call it? Just subjugating uh, young kids, saying you can't fail, you have to pass these tests, and
Here we go. We're
uh,
going on to the education system topic.
yeah, and I think it's very stagnant, and it's been like this since well, early 20th century. It hasn't really changed that much. There's
Mhm.
like in the in the Middle Ages, so for example, or even in if you're a part of a Norse community, for example, if you're a good warrior, you're a good warrior. You don't have to go through the same. You don't have to follow the same path as someone who's picking berries would, right? But I
Mhm.
think our education system is so focused on like, yeah, you have to attend these classes. I mean, do you remember anything of calculus? I don't. Like honestly, like if I need to, like I can solve very complex mathematical problems, no problem. But
Mhm.
like, there's a lot of stuff that is crammed in your head. And I'll tell you this, I think this is what Neil deGrasse Tyson said very well, right? It's that it teaches you how to solve problems, right? So that's a very good skill to have, right? Learning those subjects and approaching those subjects to solve problems, learn how to solve those problems is a very good way of doing it. But it's just stagnant, and I feel like a, a lot of people are just practical. And nowadays, the education system, especially in the West, is on the brink of collapse. You know,
Mhm.
um, it's like, I mean, have you seen what's happening in a lot of American public schools, even private schools? It's there need to be a lot of changes, but as you know, changing something that is so ingrained in culture, and it's governed by people who went through the system and now are maybe they're 70 or 80, and they're
Mhm.
part of the decision making. It's going to be hard, and it's going to take decades and decades and decades. So yeah. My personal advice, unless you want to become a doctor, a lawyer, an attorney, a solicitor, or a barrister, something that actually requires a high grade of education, try really really hard and get really really good grades. But if you just want to become like a bricklayer, or I don't know, even a coder, eh, eh, do you really need to have straight A's at like on physics and stuff like that? Not really.
Mhm.
Because most best education now is the best education's been, you know, right in front of you right now. Or
Experience, right?
not experience. The internet, it's so easy to obtain new skills. It's like,
Oh yeah, mass information.
exactly. But
I
most
think
people are lazy, so they don't want to do it unless they're forced to.
I agree. I agree. I think I guess that's the whole interesting thing about Neuralink and the ability to go past our bandwidth of eyes,
Hmm.
sound, hearing, and things like that to be able
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
transcribe information to our brain and just absorb so much more rather than just
Hmm.
be limited by our eyesight and reading speeds. And but the
Hmm.
interesting thing is, I feel like before that happens, before we get to the level where let's
Hmm.
say Neuralink can effectively let me read a Wikipedia page and boom, I'm ready to go.
Hmm.
Or for let's say, and so to interview someone on a podcast or something like that.
Hmm.
I think there's this is something I said during my TEDx talk, and that's we're not only in the world of mass information, but we're also in the world of misinformation.
Hmm. Yes.
While the internet is a great resource for learning things, sometimes, actually most of the times, it's very hard to dissect what is true and what is not.
Hmm.
There's 1,000 people monetizing their YouTube channels right now, giving advice when they themselves don't really are not sure if that's actually good advice.
Hmm.
Um, I think there was, talking about actually a recent event was the FTX crash, right? There were a lot of finance YouTubers, even ones that were very respected within the space, whether it's Graham Stephan and things like that, that ended up, not necessarily shilling, but they ended up, taking sponsorships from FTX because of their own
Of
judgment,
course.
believing that this was a good cause. I don't think they had, any ulterior motives. They generally took a sponsorship that looked legitimate to them. But it goes
Hmm.
to show that even their judgment themselves was, perhaps wrong. And it kind of goes off the fact that, okay, we give
Hmm.
access, we give everyone the access to the internet, right? So everyone can teach,
Yeah.
everyone can create, everyone can transcribe information, data. Um, and yes, everyone can learn using the internet, right? I've learned majority of my coding, entrepreneurial things, everything I've used to build Ecompilot, my career, my life has mainly came from the internet.
Hmm.
But I would have to say,
But
similar
you
to,
have something a lot of people don't: critical thinking skills. A lot of people
and
don't have
yeah, and
that.
I think that's the interesting thing. That's I believe while school tries to teach a certain amount of critical thinking, it definitely teaches problem solving, like we said. But I feel like it tries to very much, I think that the problem with, a lot of critical thinking comes from questioning life, right?
Hmm.
Philosophy, kind of almost artsy subjects that make you, you know, look at life from a different lens. And I feel like since school is so focused on it, not even necessarily on STEM, but mainly on kind of well, STEM basically is like technological subjects, sciences,
Hmm.
mathematics,
Hmm.
things like that. You know, to everyone, success and failure is a boolean. You either succeed or you fail, right? The kind of the percentages on the test score, even though it goes up to 100, there's only to them it's still black and white depending on the grade they get, because of a letter they want. And I feel
Hmm.
like that's mainly where the education system's failing. It's
Hmm.
fair enough, college and things like that, and the amount that they actually charge for university, that's a problem of its own, and we can talk hours about that. But I feel
Hmm.
like if schools only spend a little bit more time trying to teach critical thinking, either by applying some different subjects, whether it's things like
Hmm.
philosophy and stuff like that. I don't necessarily agree with people saying,
Hmm.
"Oh, schools should teach life skills," for the average man, like taxes and things. That's information you gain over time in life, and I would say, it's a waste of, let's say, taxpayers' money for, let's say, schooling at that age. I feel
Hmm.
like that at that age they should, people should teach critical thinking, the ability to put
Hmm.
yourself in other people's shoes. I wonder how many other, life and societal problems that would solve, right? Just being able to look from a
Hmm.
different person's point of view.
Yeah, I think, but the thing is, critical thinking is also very genetic based, right? You could
You think
look at
so?
my
Oh, do
ex.
you know this?
Yeah, things. No, I know this. You could look at my ex and be like, "How is she surviving?" Because right, without me, I don't think she's gonna even live past 30. But then again, what schools need to teach is group work, cooperation. Yeah, because what makes a successful company successful is the people, right? It's a lot of talented people working together in unison, to create something that has value, meaning for us as a society.
Hmm.
So I think, you don't have to be ideally like taught critical thinking skills, but you should be able to cooperate and to, as you said, take different opinions, look at, walk in someone else's shoes and look at it from their point of view. A lot of people don't have that. Artists do not have that. They have a very good attention to detail, but I don't think artists have a very good um, critical thinking skill set. That's
No,
why a lot of them
tendency they
fail.
dropped out.
Yeah, a lot. Like, I mean, art is subjective, and AI. I'm an artist myself, by the way, so I can shit on artists as a
Fair
hobby.
enough.
My art is pretty good. Check it out, Vagrants. It's coming out soon. Whenever I finish it, it's gonna be on HBO too someday when I finish it. Yeah. I think like AI, like the funny thing is, right? People were saying like, "Oh, art cannot be replaced."
That's
That's
the
the
first
human.
thing. Yeah.
That is the first thing that AI is replacing, and I love it. I love it. It's like you're spending here all this money for Parsons, right, or University of Arts London, fine art degree, and all this BS, where AI does better artwork than you. It's like, how do you even
Was it?
justify that?
Oh, was it you that said the reason it's the first thing to be replaced is because programmers hate artists, right? Because
Yeah,
forever
no,
they're condescending on us.
no, yeah, it is because like Usually in school, right? Usually in
Hmm.
school and like college, a lot of artists are at this like college, especially college, university, whatever. It promotes free thinking, exploration. So they're the type of people who will do LSD and find themselves, and the people who write code or do mathematics who are actually trying to make it applicable, to everyday life, and stuff like that, get looked down on as being boring or unimaginative. I mean, if you because I work with very large, like I've been in charge of very large teams at tech companies, and there's always this friction between graphic designers or UX designers and programmers, because the programmer's like, well, that's stupid, why do you need this? And the artist is like, well, the graphic designer's like, well, we need it because of this and this and that. So there's always going to be a clash. So
Hmm.
because I know from friends who go to MIT, the reason why they're creating this is because they're like, oh, you thought art can't be replaced? This is the fucking first thing we're gonna do. So there's like this vendetta, and it's kind of funny. It's so a lot of I think a lot of art professors are gonna be out of a job. Because it's like what does an artist do when they can't find a job? They become a professor or they work as a barista at Starbucks. And that's the truth.
Yeah. The two avenues. I guess some things are Boolean.
Yeah, in art they are. But I love art. I love artists. There's so many talented artists. I think it's just the snobbiness needs to end. This looking down on, people in the art community is very big. It's like, it's all subjective. We should all just get along. We should all just play nicely.
And
Fuck
I
it.
mean, that exactly applies to the thing of critical thinking, right? Being able to put yourself in
Mhm.
other people's shoes. I feel like if only there was a level of that taught at schools rather than kind of the segmentation of like, right, you want to go down the art pathway, you want to go down the science pathway, you're
Mhm.
failing, you're not. Um, maybe that would be different. Maybe there would be less snobbiness. I think
Mhm.
one more thing about
Cooperation, teamwork.
schools. Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. But one more thing about schools specifically is not only do we talk about like critical thinking and learning that skill,
Hmm.
but there's kind of other factors that actually come from it as well. I feel
Hmm.
like that as as people, they're trying to accept things, whether it's others simply by how they're acting.
Hmm.
Like we said, cooperation, their love for one another. But there was a specific point I was going to make that I just forgot. It was a very good point as well. It kind of reminds me of our conversation last week where you were like, I remembered there was this one point that I was going to solve everything. Um,
Hmm.
it was really good. Something to do with
Hmm.
critical thinking. Oh right, yes, yeah, yeah. Here's another thing that they should teach in schools. Um, I would say prolonged or actually, yeah. I don't know what it would be called. I don't know the term. I would call it like prolonged difficulty or kind of logical or like
Hmm.
uh, not necessarily self discovery, but you know, being able to look at your own results and tell whether you're doing well.
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't know, self judgment, perhaps self judgment in terms of work and careers
Self-reflection,
and things.
maybe.
Yes,
Hmm.
yeah, almost. I think that might be the right word to describe it. Simply by the
Uh,
fact that we straight away
mhm.
get results for our exams, right? Any kind of
Yeah.
exam, any kind of piece of work, it's almost straight away if you're on the right track or not. Meanwhile, majority of things that are worth having in life, you and me can account for this. That it's never straightforward, right? Majority of
Hmm.
times you will shoot in the dark, and you will have to, based on your self judgment and your self reflection, be able to tell if you're heading in the right direction or not. It's never,
Yeah.
you're passing, you're not. You're getting an A or a B or a C. It's
Uh-huh.
there's very mild levels of feedback that with
Hmm.
experience, there's certain experts that can succeed again and again simply by the fact that they've become so in tune with those mild, small, bits of feedback. They know they're on the right track with marketing, with engineering, with, I don't know, music, anything else. But I feel like that
Hmm.
should be taught more in schools,
Yeah.
being kind of in tune with your own self, knowing if you're
Hmm.
doing well or
Hmm.
not
Hmm.
without someone telling you.
Hmm. That does kind of give me an interesting idea. You know how in the military
Hmm.
you have boot camp, right? And you're kind of trained to kind of duck, crouch prone and,
Hmm.
walk, kind of crawl underneath barbed wire as the shooting like kind of like a machine gun, kind of like in Jarhead, the
Yeah, yeah.
movie. Um, it stresses you out, right? And when you're stressed out, right, especially in very stressful situations, one of the biggest skills you could have is learning how to navigate. and how to be observant and how to solve a problem to release that stress. That's what military boot camp is very good at. So maybe not an extreme case of this, but having this in schools where you are kind of put under kind of more playful, stressful conditions where instead of just doing a written test, you have to kind of, which I think VR is going to be a very good, or, AR is going to be a very good thing for this, use case for this, is solving complex problems instead of, calculating trajectory on a piece of paper. You can put on your VR glasses and have, someone in ancient Egypt shouting at you saying how to calculate this piece of rock being placed on this Colosseum or whatever. Sorry about my terminology here. But it makes it fun, kind of stressful, but it gives you like, oh, I'm under these conditions, but I'm learning how to solve problems, and it is kind of making me have those critical thinking skills in a fun way, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm sorry.
Perhaps that's what they try to do with coursework, right? Coursework and projects and dissertations. They try to kind of have, right, I mean, in 1 hour, sure, it's stressful in an exam, but it goes past pretty quickly. Perhaps they try to have multiple months of, okay, let's see if you're able to, motivate yourself to move towards a goal and do things. And then they have, supervisors to point you a little bit along the way, similar to, let's say, mentors or, outsiders or customers to be able to tell you if you're doing something right or wrong. Maybe that was like the attempt at it. It's one of those things that it's so easy for us to comment on, like on things in the society, but then I look at it, I'm like, how else would I solve it?
And you have to realize that it's extremely hard to implement a new system, especially like if you look at like public schools, right? And you go from the first grade all the way to whatever, right? And okay, so you're in 8th grade and you went through this curriculum your whole duration in the school, and then suddenly the school changes it, right, for all the first graders, right? That's a bit unfair, right, to change that like that. So it needs to be like a slow rollout. But then you also have to realize there's teachers unions and there's what do you call them, parent whatever, I forgot the term for it, like where parents decide on what the school should do and stuff like that, right? So it's very, very, very hard. So we could be sitting here all day, all night, arguing, like not arguing, but debating, like, and saying, oh, this is how we do it. It's impossible. You just have to create a new school, essentially. And that's where private schools come in because they operate like that. So yeah, if you want your kid to have those skills, I guess you have to pay up, and that's the answer. That's the conclusion.
Rich keep getting richer, right? Everything's simplified into that kind of silo. But
but then again, there's a lot of, like, I know my friends that went to very prestigious, very expensive schools that cost like $500,000 a year. And are they any smarter than me? I don't know. Probably not. So it just depends on how much, like, to be honest, me at school, I never took it seriously, kind of failed. I didn't care about it. Then I went to, like, I passed, I got like the highest grades in LNAT in the country, and I managed to get myself get offers from quite prestigious universities. So it's just really how you apply yourself, and as kids, we just want to play. We don't want to learn, unless it's fun learning. So yeah, I think that's just my opinion anyway. But what do I know? I'm not a teacher. I'm not a dean yet.
Yeah, I think talking about, kind of being young and being in the play mode, right? Not really caring or having responsibilities. It's interesting that, well, I don't know if it's going to be an unpopular opinion or not, but right now in societies, the whole fact of trying to protect children as much as possible, right? Away from stress, away from any kind of hassle, safe environments online and schools. And we like to set the base that, kids that don't have good childhoods come out traumatized and evil. Yeah, I mean, for the past 100 years, only the past 100 years have we really had stable childhoods, right? We look at industrial era, right? Take it 200 years back. and you have a 7-year-old working the chimneys, right?
Yeah.
And yet society somehow turned out. We went to the booming era and things. I mean, sure, you could kind of say the argument that all the serial killers were in the 1960s and 1970s, so that could be as of a
They're
cause
still
why
around now. Still
perhaps
around
they're just not being
now.
found.
I mean, they're not as popularized, and that's for a good reason. Is because in criminology, it's like, do you really want to popularize a serial killer? Right? Yeah, it just get reported, but then it just it draws a lot of it. Like, obviously, there's country to country, and I don't keep up on serial killers, but I remember learning this about criminology. Sorry, is that it's for a good reason. It's because you don't want to. It stresses the police out trying to investigate, first of all, and it gives the killers more motive to keep doing what they're doing. Like, a lot of them do feed off that.
And that's why Jeffrey Dahmer is streaming in every Netflix.
Yeah, I mean, it is an interesting one. Like, there's a lot of backlash on that. I haven't seen it. I don't really watch. It's kind of ironic that I don't really watch TV or movies, but don't have time. Yeah, so I heard there's like a lot of backlash, and a lot of people love it. It's being romanticized, and people need to realize it's just an adaptation. It's an artistic representation, I guess, of that those events, with some details being embellished. I know the biggest concern was paying respects to victims' families. I mean, if the victims' families did give consent, that's fair enough. If not, obviously replace it with someone fictitious. I think that is the most respectable way. But yeah, the thing is, it's in our DNA. People are hungry for war, blood, violence, sex, you name it. We're just
No matter
violent
how
apes.
clean the childhood is.
No. I mean, the whole childhood thing, trying to protect children online, it comes from a good place, but then it also gets abused to to set an agenda by private companies, corporations.
Cancel culture as well.
Yeah, but that's kind of dying now. I think it's kind of nobody cares anymore, right? It's like, unless it's a big event, it's because people abused it so much. People started canceling everyone. Now that, like, nobody cares. It's kind of like a badge of honor being canceled. Those lynch mobs are kind of dying out, especially with TikTok. Nobody cares about TikTok. Like, the views and followers, they're so cheap and plentiful. Your 500,000 followers on TikTok mean jack shit. That's a dig at my ex. Yeah, and now with Elon buying Twitter as well, that precedent is changing. So Twitter, I don't think is going to be having a lot of, cancel culture anymore. Yeah, I actually, when Elon, bought Twitter, I emailed him. I'm like, oh yeah, can you get me verified? I don't use Twitter at all. Don't like it. I have a Twitter, but I just don't really use it. And he's like, there's Twitter Blue now. I think it's $7 or $8. I'm like, hell no, I'm not paying that. I'll have that as my only unverified thing, out of principle, because everyone's going to be verified there. So I do not want to be verified. I'm verified on Instagram. Hell yeah, I want to feel special. If you don't have the blue check mark, that means. But the thing is, right? It's like, anyone who has a blue check mark, people can laugh. Oh, you're paying for Twitter. It's like, I don't even use the thing. Why would I even pay for it? Unless, we're posting ads for the company. Yeah. But for me personally, I don't use it. I don't care for it. I don't really, keep up to date to the latest happenings. I'm more of an Instagram person. I get my news through memes. And if I go on, I don't even use LinkedIn, to be honest. Yeah, and Facebook is just, I don't know. Facebook is
And look who's become the snobby artist, looking down at Twitter blues, sitting up on your pedestal.
You know what? I am a hypocrite, and I'll admit this, and I'll own this. labels do not scare me. Call me a narcissist, a hypocrite. Fine, I am. What about it?
If only there was cancel culture around.
Oh God, tell me about it.
What would you do?
Man, I don't know. Like, I'd be like, fine, call me that. It's kind of funny when I was going back to my breakup. They're like, she's trying to put all these labels on me, and I'm like, you're trying to demean me and make me feel bad, even though it's not true. I'd be like, you know what? Fine. You want to call me that? Fine, I own it. And it takes away all their power. And suddenly they're like, oh, but he's not supposed to react like that. And then you look at them, so you're trying to manipulate and gaslight me, and suddenly their whole argument falls apart. It's just the blind lead, yeah, leading the deaf, or the deaf leading the blind, or whatever the saying is. So, yeah. But it's disappearing now, especially. Yeah, yeah. I think it's with like Gen Z. They're literally like, remember when we were growing up, we grew up on like 4chan and like all those kind of like memes and stuff like that. Like the latest generation, Jesus Christ, they're not 4chan, they're like 8chan. They're like extreme. They're like extreme.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah.
there was like this gap where the people who are like 17 to like maybe 20, like 20, right? They're in that period of, oh, let's cancel or do this, mental health and stuff like that, which is important, but like it's all been weaponized, to gain control or likes and stuff like that. But I
Yeah, I
think
mean,
the generation.
I think the best indicator of that is the fact that most memes are generally created by the younger demographic, even though it tends to
Mhm.
just be us watching them, reacting to them because we find them funny as hell. But
Yeah.
and like, who's become the saving soul of male humanity? It's American Psycho, like we look at, okay, maybe things are such starting to show their colors of how live society in this mass information world where they have access to everything in
Mhm.
8chan, to the point where this 14-year-old's being like, yeah, I'm a Sigma, I've got my headphones in walking to the office with my
Yeah,
reservation to
Doomer. Yeah.
Dorsiers.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? It's and this is what cancel culture did, and the whole sanitized environment did. People will always rebel because people want to be free. People want to be individuals, right? Um, it's American Psycho is a very dark comedy, I would say. Same as Bale would say. It's like you have to have a sixth sense of humor to look into it. I wouldn't base my personality on American Psycho because he's a psycho. Um, it's a good view. It's a good angle to view how um, it's a good parody of the kind of finance culture in the late '80s in America, the late '80s, early '90s, of how people were, and it's taken to an very big extreme. Because like I see, Jake Gyllenhaal in Nightcrawler, Joaquin Phoenix, Joker, being adapted by this subculture or culture, of young males and very, young kids, saying, "Oh, he represents me." No, you
Mhm.
don't want to be Joker. You don't want to be. I forgot his character's name, Jake Gyllenhaal in Nightcrawler, and you don't want to be Bale as American Psycho. No, you should be striving to be Bruce Wayne, from The Dark Knight,
Yeah.
not Patrick Bateman from American Psycho. Um, Batman is very, and Bale will say this, that, um, will say that, because he's said it publicly and when we spoke and stuff like that, is like Batman is like in The Dark Knight very, very close to becoming a villain himself because he does a lot of dodgy illegal stuff and blah, blah, blah for,
Hmm.
the ends justify the means. But still, like at heart, he chooses to do the right thing always. Whether it's trying to sacrifice himself for the great good and stuff. Try to be more like Bruce Wayne, not the asshole type, but the morality. Rather than Patrick Bateman, because Patrick Bateman is just a psychopath.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
that
morality is a
kills
key
people
point.
and
Yeah.
cats or dogs. Yeah.
I was gonna
Um,
say, like, there's on the last topic for this podcast.
mhm.
It's quite an interesting one. From leading on from Patrick Bateman and how the 8chans happening, and we look at the world today. We've talked about everything from the education system to
Mm-hmm.
trademarks, intellectual property, to the fact that like right now there's obviously the Ukrainian war going on. There's the
Mm-hmm.
energy crisis. There's things feel like they're moving 1,000 miles per hour around the whole world. While the
Yep.
economy, the recession's looming and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is
I thought it's already
interesting.
happening.
Well, perhaps it is. I think maybe the worst is yet to come, or maybe the worst is past. I don't know, but I don't know who to trust anymore. Again, misinformation and all of this, all the mass information.
Mm-hmm.
But the interesting point is,
Mm-hmm.
we look at 40 years, behind prior to the internet and things. Are
Mm-hmm.
things really moving fast in today's world, or are we just more tuned in? Is it just the fact that we have more inputs? The fact that we can hear what's going on in US,
Yeah.
in America, everywhere. Like we can see videos every day from around the world, right? There's so many, like the mass
Mm-hmm.
information, and because the world's connected, it feels like everything's moving at 1,000 miles per hour. But is it actually
Mm-hmm.
maybe we're moving at the exact same speed as we did in 50 years ago?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's always been critical events and wars, and just look at the 90s, the Chechen wars, between Russia and all of that. Right now, that would still be big news, and it was big news back then too. There's always been critical mass events happening every year. But
Mm.
like you just said, we're just more tuned in because everything's online. You can just take out your smartphone and film. Even the farmers in rural China have smartphones now, and they can share. And obviously, with Elon's, Starlink and stuff like that, more and more people are going to be connected more and more. So it's just, and algorithms are now going to decide, what you should see or not. So yeah, 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 it's just more tuned in. It's always been happening. There's always been shit happening, pretty much. Yeah.
Mm.
There's
Yeah,
always been maniacs around, and there's always been good people around. It's just survival of the fittest now. It's like if you can create something, do it now. Use that brain. I see so many like guys like, oh, I'm gonna go to the gym, get ripped and shredded. I'm like, okay, yeah, cool. You saw those Patrick Bateman motivational, oh, she broke up with me videos. I'm gonna go get shredded. It's like, cool. There's like 5,000 other guys doing the same thing. Go to the gym for your mental health. Release that anger, stress, but then use that other time to do something constructive that will grow wealth, right? Not make you rich,
Mhm.
grow wealth, because that wealth will then take care of you, your family, and hopefully your partner and whoever else. That will create value. Society and the markets reward value, right? Sure, there's scams and frauds like FTX and stuff like that, but that's just market. The markets, equal, like kind of equalizing everything. It's just it'll always happen. It was like Enron or whatever, it'll always happen. These big, massive frauds, blah, 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 you name it. Don't focus on that. Focus on creating something. Focus on starting a business. Focus on failing and then starting again and not giving up. That's my advice. It's that simple. It's not complicated.
Mm. I guess it's finding the perfect balance. The one advice I would offer is, talking about Patrick Bateman and the whole idea of a psychopath being emotionless, right? If you're
Mm-hmm.
able to apply that logical thinking just to business and decisions and, dealing with failure
Mm-hmm.
rather than being so emotionally invested, I see too many people kind of,
Mm-hmm.
well, I don't know whether it's ego, insecurities or what, but they end up creating this
Mm-hmm.
amalgamation of, what ends up being them. They're represented by their business failures, or they're represented by their career successes, or by the music they produce. And all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden, it becomes much harder for them to express, their best work.
Mm-hmm.
If only they can separate that and decrease the amount of
I
emotional thinking that goes into that.
I think um I kind of agree and disagree with this because
Hmm.
you can't just be an emotionless machine, right? Because
Definitely.
then you're just going to be an asshole. I think what Mark Bezos told me is like, if you're a good person, right, and you start this business, build this business, and you become rich, you're at the end of the day, you're still going to be a good person with just a nicer car.
Hmm.
Like you said to me, if you're an asshole, right, you're always going to be an asshole. People change, of course, they always do. But at the end of the day, you still have that to have that emotional connection. You still have to have empathy. You
Oh
can't
yeah,
just be
yeah.
a ruthless dictator, like
But
because
that's what I mean. I think specifically to business, right? So
Yeah.
I'm not talking about like your competitors or how you treat other people or networking, but I mean as in
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, if you're able to simply dissect or limit the amount of emotional thinking when it comes to business decisions, and the way you act or the way you reflect on yourself in terms of the failures you've gone through,
Hmm.
because I feel like what ends up stopping a lot of people's best work is the fact that they're
Hmm.
so emotionally invested. They don't let themselves fail. They don't let themselves express. It
Hmm.
plateaus their performance. I mean, you see this
Hmm.
with boxers. You see this all around the world, right? The whole idea of people trying to kind of become in the zone, get into the flow where you're kind of disconnected and you're fully focused on that task. I definitely agree. Yeah, outside of business or creating whether it's your music or taking risks, 100% you need
Hmm.
emotion. You need
Hmm.
emotions. At the end of the day, that's the fruit of
Yeah.
life, right? There wouldn't be no point doing anything if there was no
Hmm.
emotions. But yeah,
I think the biggest piece of advice I can actually give in this regard, I forgot who told me, but maybe I told this to myself. Who knows? I am quite the genius. Anyway, is that view all of your failures as an artwork or album, right? Artists make new albums all the time. Some of them flop, some of them don't. So if 4 of your businesses failed, okay, you learned a lot. You got a lot of practical knowledge. Hopefully, you can utilize all of that. And I speak from experience, right? I failed a lot. I invested a lot of money in a lot of companies that failed, but I'm not ashamed of it because those failures made me super resourceful. And that's why online shop is so lean. And this is why we're going to take over the market, you know? Is because it's lean, because I failed so many times. And saying, oh, I failed so many times, it's not a detriment. Actually, it shows to me that, oh, you failed this many times, you're resilient, you're resourceful, you're going again. I respect that, you know? A lot of people don't realize this. It's like, oh, he failed 4 businesses and blah. No, you should encourage, try again. It's like a coach. They will, or like a personal trainer, right? If you drop your weight, right, are they going to be like, oh well, you failed, give up? No, 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 no. They're going to be like, pick them up, you know try again. We should apply the same logic to a lot of entrepreneurs,
that's a
to
very good
entrepreneurship.
metaphor. That is a very good metaphor, right? I mean, any kind of progress in the gym physically, it goes with progressive overload. You want to work till failure. That's literally the terminology. And you
Yep.
want to apply that to,
Yeah, tear
progress
those
in
muscles
everything, in
apart,
career.
baby. That's how you get them bigger.
Yeah.
And VC funding is that steroid injection.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's the quick anabolic performance enhancing.
Hmm. Of
What's
course.
what's a Red Bull or an Adderall? Is that like an angel?
Hmm.
That's a pre-seed.
Oh man, you know what? Adderall is Cialis RX when the steroids make you limp. So, joking. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good one. Is that like, yeah, I don't know. No idea.
It's the accelerator. Let's give it that. It's the accelerator of the
Okay,
incubator because it's
accelerator. Okay.
temporary. It's a temporary. You know what I mean? Boom,
Oh
you're
yeah.
high
Okay.
performance for 3 months and then boom, it's gone.
I like that. Ooh, I like
Right.
that. That's very clever. I love that.
All right. We'll end it there. It's on a positive note that failure is inevitable and that's how you grow. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. You know
Tear
why?
those
Why?
muscles, like
Why
Terry
do?
said.
Exactly. Why do we fall? So we can pick ourselves back up. No, it's a Batman Begins quote.
Too much Batman. There you go. Well, you
Oh
know
man.
why? His name's Terry McGinnis.
No, exactly. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening, I guess.
Right.
Hopefully.
We'll see you around.